the house next door caught on fire, and when it was being repaired or being investigated and it was vacant, a ton of fucking people were going in and out, stealing shit, and living in the attic. So we'll just start from the beginning on that. How do I start with this guy next door? So this dude next door lives with his mom. His mom's a super nice, like, medical worker lady. She always had scrubs on. The first night I met her was when I had just moved into the house, and I had raccoons living in my attic because my house had been abandoned or empty for a while. And so I was standing on the sidewalk in front of my house, shining a flashlight up at these raccoons. There was like 3 of them up there. And she like walked up and like her arms dropped when she saw me standing out there in like winter clothes, shining a flashlight at my roof. And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just bought the place, whatever." And we talked, and she was cool. And I never got his name. I didn't get his name until like all this shit went down. I mean, I literally like lived next to this guy for like a year, right? Something like that. Man, that lady talks loud. We gotta have a meeting, man. We gotta have an office park meeting. Alright, so she lives with her adult son, right? And this guy is like, something's a little different about him. I don't want to like defamate anyone or fucking slander anybody, but he's just let's just say he seems he's different, okay? And he's always at the house. I don't think he works. I think he might be like disabled, but he's a friendly guy, and we interact with each other like a little bit here and there. And then I get a dog. I get Archie, and next thing I know, like literally a couple days later, he gets a dog. I'm like, that's fucking weird. And then he gets 2 more dogs. And so we're friendly. You know what I mean? He's an oddball. I think. I don't think that's like a mean or defamatory thing to say. But we get along. I'm always nice to him. We talk if there's something going on. Like I had to trim some trees and whatever. When the power would go out, he had this like really high pitched voice, like, "Hey, how's it going?" And that comes into play because over the course of like the next year, right? When did this all happen? I'm really spacing on like the timeline. It's hard to keep track. I'm really good with dates at certain times of my life because I was moving around so much, but I've been in this house now for a couple of years, so time frames kind of all just run together. Anyway, he this strange guy, and he's got these dogs that he can't control and that don't really seem like they want to be there. And 3 times a day minimum, he's outside in his underwear catching. He doesn't have a fence. He's got a German Shepherd, a Labrador, and a husky puppy. And he doesn't have a fence. He's got a net. He dug a couple of posts around the side of his house and put a net up. And so 3 times a day, these dogs are getting out. And he is outside going, "Sheba! Tony! Zelda!" Like at the top of his phone. I'm trying to keep it down. Some people in this office park aren't. But he's still screaming at the top of his lungs. And I've had a couple people stay here, and on the holidays and stuff, my mom will crash over here, and every one of them is disturbed by this at some point, early in the morning, middle of the night. You can never tell when it's going to come. It could be the middle of the fucking day. Like right now, if he were still living over there, I don't know if we can pick it up. I haven't gone back and checked the shows. If you can hear the people talking in the other room. But if you could, you would hear me, the cars going by, and him in the background. "Sheba, Tony, Zelda." And sometimes like really losing his mind, like, "Ah!" like so it was like there's always this like, I'm sorry to say it, but it's a disturbed person who's out shouting in the neighborhood all the time for like a year, and it has been so goddamn quiet since he's been gone. So anyway, he's still, again, I like the kid. He's a friendly kid. and his mom loved my dog, and she was a nice lady. So this all comes to a head one day. Oh, and I'll tell you one thing. He really did. So just so you know that this guy is like a nice. I can let you form your own opinion at the end of it, okay? But one day, something went wrong with my garage door, and I was trying to get it back on the track, and I basically got the whole garage door off of the track and had it on my head, like frozen, standing on a bucket, like this, holding a fucking, I don't know, it had to be a couple 100-pound garage door with the folding bits and shit. And he just happened to come outside, and I was like, dude, you gotta help me, I don't know how much longer I can hold this. Like, it would have been really bad. At best, I would have destroyed the garage door when I dropped it, but I was probably gonna get hurt too. And he helped me at least get it propped up so that the garage door was shut, and I could call a professional to come and fix it. So again, I don't want this to sound like I feel one way or another once some of these events unfold, right? So, one day I'm drinking beer in the garage. And I think I had just gotten rid of my last tenant, who was a fucking nightmare, so I was like really enjoying being alone. And I'm chilling in the garage drinking beer. Stella, I remember, because I had just installed a fucking beer bottle opener. And he comes over and he's like, hey, just so you know, my mom's in the hospital and she's probably going to die. And so she told me to just come over here and tell you that, goodbye. And I was like, oh man, that's terrible. Like, that's such a bizarre thing. Like, I don't have any kind of relationship with these people. Like, we see each other occasionally say something, but for the most part on our block, people are keeping it to themselves. And we're also building resentment. Everyone I live with is building resentment against this guy for screaming at the top of his fucking lungs at his dogs all the time. So then then some time passes, whatever. It wasn't very long, maybe like a week. He comes over, same thing, drink a beer in the garage. And he says, just so you know, my mom died. And I'm like, oh man, I'm sorry, that's so sad. Like, and I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, if you can't, what are you going to do if you can't, take over the mortgage? Like, the mortgage was in her name, and I'm like I said before, this guy looks like he doesn't fucking work. So he's like, I don't know, I guess I'll just move or something, right? And so he fucking time goes by. I don't remember. It gets a little foggy because so much went down after this little bottleneck of the story. But he's dealing with it. I'm hearing little tidbits, and I'm seeing like people coming and going, maybe people potentially looking at the house or whatever. And then he has this like couple of people over who are acting real shady. They're paying too much attention to me. I don't know why. Like, I know that I do kind of stick out in Omaha, Nebraska. I know, I get that. But they're like, I don't know. I just feel like when I'm in my garage or when I'm on my porch smoking, they're looking at me a little too much. They look suspicious to me, okay? And so one day, my mom's over, we're having lunch, and she is sitting on the couch next to the door, and the door knocks. Somebody knocks on the door. It's the guy from next door. Now, keep in mind, I've known this guy for like a year, some change, and I don't even know his fucking name. He's just the dude next door. And he goes, his voice, he's not talking like this anymore. He goes, yeah, could you watch my house? I'm going to go out of town for a couple of days. And I was like, watch your house? Like, how? Like, what, get your mail? And he's like, yeah, get my Amazon packages and just hold on to them until I come back. And doesn't tell me anything. I don't even ask. I think I did ask, like, you want me to feed your dogs? And he's like, no, they're fine. Just get my Amazon packages. And I'm like, okay, cool. So he leaves. Now, at this time of year, I would say I was waking up really early because it's really cool outside, and I could take the dog to the park, and I can skate a little. I'm just pushing around, no tapping the tail. And so naturally I'm starting drinking a little early, you know what I mean? Because I'm waking up before dawn, you know. So my routine at this time of the year, right, is I'm pretty much ready to go to bed by sundown, which is late, if I remember. Later than it is right now. So, what I like to do is go outside and smoke one last cigarette and finish my last beer on my deck, which looks out over my backyard. We'll take you on a tour of that soon on the channel. And it's dark back there. Nobody has lights in their backyard, right? So out back in the deeper part of all the backyards that look together, it's very, very dark. And we get tons of lightning bugs back there. There's a big old like tree that fell over. So I think there's a lot of wildlife, groundhogs, snakes, and lightning bugs. Tons of lightning bugs. So by the time, if you've been drinking, since, earlier and smoking weed, you got a nice little bubbly, you're ready to go to bed, you're having a smoke, and it's like a laser fucking light show. That's like my tradition now during that time of year. I like discovered it one night from up on the deck, and I was like, dude, I still need to take some like mushrooms or some acid or some Molly or something and do it. So I'm out there, and I can't remember at what point I noticed it was hazy, but I start to hear a beep, right? I start to notice a beep. One thing about me is I can drown out a lot of shit, a lot of noise I don't like. You know what I mean? You grew up in an abusive household, you get into codependent relationships, you can drown a lot of noise out. And at this point, I'm a little drunk, I'm ready to go to bed, I'm tired. I've been working on the house all day. Then I noticed that the backyard, the whole back area, wherever there is light, is hazy. And I hear the beeping, and I think, oh shit, that's a fire alarm. And then I walk down the stairs closer to his house, and I can smell smoke. So I call the fire department. And for a split second, before I walk to the front window, because they showed up quick, we live right down the street from a fucking firehouse. I thought for a split second before I walked to the window that maybe I fucked up by calling, 911. But then when I saw a second fire truck pull up and the guys got out and ran to the fucking house, I was like, you didn't fuck up at all. So then I'm looking out the front window and the whole neighborhood's filling up with smoke. And I walked out for a second. I see the girl next door running up the street towards this older lady's house. I don't know if she was checking on her or what, but I'm just looking out my big front window, kind of pressed up against the glass like this, trying to look at the house next to me. And, they're doing something. I hear them breaking windows out. I see the hoses going off. But I'm not trying to be too much of a looky-loo, and I don't want to go outside because now the smoke is really bad. And then I think once it was all settled, you can kind of feel the tension change. I've never been near anything like that. Then I look, and the fucking 2 firefighters are bringing out the German Shepherd, Sheba. Yeah. And then they just start taking cats' bodies and throwing them on top of the German Shepherd. And I'm just watching, horrified from my window the whole time, like this. I think I popped my head out onto the porch a couple of times, but it was too smoky. And so this guy left his house, and I want to say this was 12 to 36 hours. It was either the night that he told me he was going out of town that it caught on fire, or it was the next night. But I don't think it had been 2 days. Like I said, if you're in the same space all the time, you lose track. Anyway, so animal control comes, gets rid of all the carcasses of the... So, yeah, that's what I was saying. He goes out of town for a couple of days, and he leaves 10 animals in there. And according to the fire inspector that I spoke to, there's nothing really wrong with that. Apparently in Nebraska, you can leave your dogs for any amount of time as long as they have ample water and somewhere to take a shit. So that's what he was supposedly doing. So where are we at on time? Fuck, I think this might be a long one. I think it probably should have been its own, but you know what? No, gotta just keep going. So so whatever. where was I at? Fucking house catches on fire, it burns down. Um, well, it doesn't burn down. The basement just gets burned up. They break all the windows out. They hose it the fuck out, right? And hose it the fuck out. I don't talk to anybody that night, I don't think. The news came. It was on the fucking news. My buddy from San Francisco fucking sent me a headline. He comes here to visit, so he probably gets Omaha news updates. Just for that reason, I don't think it made national news. But 10 animals. So 10 animals die in the fire. All 3 dogs. And that was the heartbreaking part about it, because it was like those dogs were trying to get away from that house. I wonder if they knew that something was wrong, like with the electrical. So it turns into this whole thing where like conspiracy theories start fucking flying around the neighborhood that he might have done it on purpose. I was not one of the people who believe that. Yes, I did find it to be strange. I also did not propose that fucking theory. I did find it strange that he had a different demeanor. He left his dogs. I personally would just never leave my dog for days on end, no matter how much food or room he has to shit. So the next day I talked to the fire inspector guy. He's basically just apathetic. Like, he cares. So I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but he is a fire inspector. He's tasked with determining if things are arson or not. And he's like, this is fishy, is all I can tell you, but arson is one of the hardest crimes to prove. So I can't rule it on arson. And I was like, well, that's interesting. And then so then the guy comes home, right? And he's like, oh my God. He goes in the house, he comes out, and he's like, comes on the porch, and he's like, oh my God, I killed them. I killed my animals. And he's like loud and high pitched, but he's not crying or anything. He's not like, it seemed a little inauthentic to me. You know what I mean? Or maybe he's just, again, he just has a different brain than mine, right? And that is not how he expresses, that's how he expresses being upset. But I think a lot of people would disagree with that had they saw what I saw. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I do, but I think I'm thinking of people I know that if I told them this story, and when I did tell some of them this story, they're like, they weren't buying it. Anyway, so time goes on, and end up running into the insurance inspector, and like, I tell him what I told you guys just now. Like, the list of events. His mom died. He has no way to take care of the fucking mortgage on that house. He has no way of, taking care of the house itself, right? He goes out of town. A couple hours later, the house catches on fire, right? And he gets fucking real suspicious. And he's probably already like that because he's the fucking guy who has to determine whether or not to cut the check. So, at this point, the kid shows back up. I find out his name is, well, I shouldn't say his name, but I finally find out his name. And I'm being cool with him because I do know he is, like, different. And I'm very, gentle with people who are different from the norm, okay? But the lady he's with is just being an obnoxious piece of shit. And she's talking to me the whole time like she's talking to the fucking cops. And every time they come back over with her, she's telling me, like, she even had the nerve to tell me that I gummed up him getting his money from the house. She said this. That I made it move slower because I talked to the fire inspector. And I was like, dude, first of all, I talked to the fire inspector. I called 911 in the first place because I live in a house. I was shook, man. I live in a house that's next door to this, right? How would you feel if your house could have gotten, at best, soaked with water so it didn't catch on fire, or if it burned the fuck down? Everything that I love and care about is in this fucking house. So I've exploring, or maybe not exploring, but like entertaining the idea that this could have been nefarious, right? Would make any homeowner, especially someone who had to work their fucking dick off and get luckier than a motherfucker to ever even fucking own a home, would get anybody thinking things and helping these motherfuckers, if they can, either catch the person who almost set the whole fucking neighborhood of pine houses on fire, right? Or stop them from getting their money at best. Yes, I would love to interfere with that, but that's not what I was doing. I'm a concerned neighbor. The insurance inspector asked me some questions. I didn't say anything incriminating. I didn't say anything incriminating to the fire inspector. I just told them what I knew. And I thought might be relevant because maybe I had some suspicions, but I'm not sharing them now. And the kid told me that he didn't burn his house down on purpose to get the insurance money. And I believe him. But he did get the loan on the house settled by the insurance company. And then he sold it, as like a fucked up old house for like, I probably shouldn't say how much, but I've been talking to the lady who bought it, who's now flipping it. She lives next door. I've been helping her keep an eye, keep the place safe. But the whole time in between when the house, they get settled with the insurance company, he's going to get his money. You know what I mean? He got his money he got the loan settled, right? He gets insurance money, I think, right? And then on top of that, he gets what he sold the house for. So he's good. He's buying his time. He's got more money he's ever had in his fucking life. He'll be all right. He has no way of taking care of himself because he's disabled. That's what his lawyer told me and his family members who were there. So I'm not saying anything out of pocket. I'm just being a journalist on what happened on my block, And so in between then and when the nice lady next door buys the place, the fucking place is like a target for every fucking gnarly tweaker in the neighborhood, dude. Like, down the block used to be a guy who was a tweaker who I think sold shit because he always had people coming in and out, and he just disappeared one day. Next day, like a couple weeks later, a fucking dumpster showed up and they threw everything inside the house outside of the house and then fixed it up and rented it to somebody. But we still have this like trail of tweakers who come up and down. Not a lot. It's like they trickle in once in a while. They keep a low profile, and it's always the same ones. So I think there's probably somebody up there who's a user, not like a large scale dealer who's probably helping his buddies get his shit. But people like that tell people who frog, right? Like we talked about earlier, or they're a community. Like if I'm a quasi homeless or unhoused person, and I'm going up here to buy dope from my buddy because I'm addicted, right? And my other buddy is fucking homeless or unhoused, like maybe fully unhoused, and I see the danger, condemned sign on the fucking window next door, then I'm going to tell my buddy, hey, there's a place you can go fucking live in the attic. So at this point, the kid who owns the place is getting ready to sell it. He's coming and going. I'm taking care. He's paying me to mow his yard. Because there had been people. I mean, it was like almost every night there for a while. I mean, there was one guy. I rolled up on him. I came out on the porch to smoke, and I just see a fucking dude in his yard and standing next to a bicycle. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And I already had a couple of people. This is my thing. I'm not trying to be Sheriff Milhouse, all right? But if that place turns into a fucking dope house, right, and he can't sell it because it's turning into a dope house, right, then it's going to stay a dope house, all right? And I didn't buy this house here to live next to a dope house. And one thing that you don't know about dope houses is they don't come with electricity. So a lot of times in dope houses, people are using candles to cook drugs and fucking see what they're doing. And sometimes those dope houses burn to the ground. So all I was trying to do with the people who were breaking into this house to steal shit, first it was scrappers showing up, taking everything that wasn't nailed down outside. It's like these guys just roam the neighborhoods looking for those yellow tags. And the scrappers come up, take everything metal off the property, break in at night if they can. I caught one guy, I think he was going in there and breaking in, and he wasn't pulling up with his truck. I think it was the same guy who had come and gotten some scrap from the backyard, and I gave him some of my scrap. But I think he was going in there at night and scrapping shit out of there and setting it like in the backyard, like kind of concealing it. Because there was just everything. Everything was like I should have written it down, every new encounter. But then like one day I'd go outside and I'd find like a Tupperware box filled with all the food that had been in their fucking cabinet for months. You know what I mean? Like, it was just slowly and slowly people were, and that might have been before he came back. I mean, this went on for months, dude, months, where it was like every day. And then he started coming, yeah, he came back to keep an eye on the place. He hadn't been staying on property. He still wasn't, but he came back to get the place completely cleaned out. All the garbage, all the old rotting food. Because you got to think, it's like if you just left your house today, in a couple of months, it would be completely spoiled. Like everything would be horrible. Like all the food in the thing, all the everything. It would be. I left my house for 2 weeks, not this summer, but last summer, and didn't. I think I left the air on, or I mean, I left it off and didn't, or left it really high or something, but there hadn't been a lot of circulation, and it just is an old house. I cleaned the fuck out of it before I left, and it just had an old house smell when I walked in. So he's there getting it cleaned out, and you got to keep in mind, this whole time, now my neighborhood smells like fucking an hour in, and we're getting to this. But now, this whole time, for a stretch of months, dude, into the summer, hot summer, the whole neighborhood smells like a burned up building, right? Like that sulfury fucking thing. The smell of dead animals, right? Because cats and dogs burned up in this fire. And then this fucking wretched, the worst stench was the fucking, all the rotten food that he had in his house that he was throwing out into a dumpster in the front. And it would be days before the dumpster would come get picked up. So it was like walking out in front of the house. It was like, that's basically when I stopped drinking beer in the garage, because being outside around my house smelled fucking terrible, dude. Like, but luckily I live really close to a park. And I'm a bit of a homebody, so it never got into my house. But so this whole time, just to do a recap, right? My house almost catches on fire because this guy's house catches on fire. It's abandoned. I have to mow the lawn. I'm getting a little bit of money. That's not bad. But I don't want to do it, and I'm doing it. You got to mow the lawn because you don't want it to look completely abandoned. You want it to look like somebody's taking care of it. That was my logic. And then when I go out at night for my nighttime smoke, or if I wake up super early in the morning, because that's still, prime creeping around time. And this still goes on. The people are still interested in this place and trying to get into it, or maybe even getting into it. It's just gotten a lot better since the lady bought it. I'll get to that. So I guess I still got a lot of, I'm getting kind of hot talking about this shit. So I got to be sheriff of the fucking neighborhood. I got to be groundskeeper now. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, this kid doesn't have the responsibility of a mortgage, makes a good chunk of change from selling it, and is fucking done with the whole thing. Even though he almost burned the neighborhood down, and he left his stank on it for months after having lived next to this fucking guy for a year of him screaming at his dog, Sheba, Zelda, Tony. Like, it's not like it's something that was like, ruining my quality of life or anything. In fact, I lived on the other side of the house from him. So it never really disturbed me. It would just be kind of funny when it's like, he's doing it again. But for the people who stayed or have visited and stayed on the West Wing, I imagine it was probably pretty fucking terrible. And then it definitely was terrible having to deal with living next to a burned down house. It was slowly getting turned into a drug house. And I never called the cops on any of these people. I just tried to go over there, be friendly at first. If it looked like they weren't taking it serious, that they needed to get the fuck out of there, then I would get really aggressive. And burglary is a passive crime, so nothing terrible ever happened. And I'm well armed, so then this lady buys it, and damn, I don't know if I should say this, but it was public record. But his lawyer is a guy who represents people like this, who maybe have like a little functional disability or something. I don't even know what the proper words to say that are, but he also was like indicted a couple years ago, and I think he got himself off because he took cocaine as a payment for his for a lawyer thing. And I was like, damn, this dude rules. Like, my mom and I were talking about it because, every day I'm giving her new updates about fucking what's going on with this fucking circus next door. And she looks the lawyer up, and I was like, damn, next time I see him around here, I'm going to get his business card, because if this guy can if he's down to take cocaine as payment, and fucking if he's down to take cocaine's payment, right, and get himself off of that allegation, right, allegedly, then the next time a fucking bartender tries to choke me out for no reason, or assaults me or harasses me, man, I'm gonna call him and I'm gonna see if he'll fucking help me sue them, because I couldn't get a goddamn lawyer. I got choked out by a large female bartender, and for no reason. Like, it was on camera and she was clearly wrong, and I wasn't gonna press charges, but there wasn't a lawyer in this whole fucking River Cities that would touch it. Yeah, so now day to day with that is like the most recent thing has been like this lady bought it, and she's like a house flipper, and so she's always got crews over here. So it went from smells to sounds, where now I'm waking up, and I'm always like a make the best of it Millhouse kind of guy. Like, they start swinging hammers at 8 a.m. I'm getting up at 8 a.m. and I'm working out and fucking taking coffee. You know what I mean? So that started to slow down. The other night I heard a big boom, and it sounded like that clunk of like a double pane glass or something. Like what I would imagine my window sounded like if I banged on it in the front. She's got the same one. And I look out the window, and there's a dark-skinned guy with a like chambray pants on and a dark hoodie, and he just kind of like stood back into the bushes, like I couldn't see him. There's like a hedge right next to the house, and I just sat there in the window and stared at him until he slowly went around the hedge and left, right? So I'm just, oh man, there's two beautiful cardinals out there. Holy shit. I got the best bird watching because of that stump I was telling you about with the with the groundhogs. Or it's a tree that fell over from one yard to the other. And there's like groundhogs that live under it. And there's tons of garter snakes. And there's tons of birds. I get blue jays, red-breasted blackbirds, the cardinals. They're slowly becoming my favorite. Especially because I always see them this time of year when it's like dead fall, and then just a bright fucking red cardinal. I'm looking right at him. It's like I'm talking to him. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the story of the house next door from